Let's continue.
Went into more scandalous affairs, that the two had actually been romantic in a time past, only to suffer from a major breakup, thus causing Teleka's mental health to spiral, with the relationship potentially putting his career in jeopardy, as who knows what Teleka might say or do. And given his wealth, he certainly had the means to make this happen. However, this theory never really went further than mere speculation, and police would adamantly state that Sapp was merely a victim of stalking, and was never considered a person of interest in this case.
The pastor is nothing more than an innocent victim of an apparent stalking.
And on a similar note, there was another early...
Notice the sheriff said apparent. There is no concrete evidence that she was stalking him. No concrete evidence. If there was concrete evidence, the sheriff would have said, due to her stalking him, the minister or the reverend or whoever he is, the gospel singer, has asked for, personal protection or restraining order.
A suspect that would emerge in the public eye, Teleka's ex-husband, Ismael Calderon, to whom she had been married to for 4 years before splitting up in 2011. Immediately after the two had separated, Teleka had gone onto an online nursing forum and accused Ismael of emotionally and verbally abusing her throughout their relationship.
Mind you, she had an ex-husband. Have they looked into him? Has her ex-husband done something to her? What if her ex-husband has something to do with this? That's another entity. Mind you, he's attached to other people. Who did she know that he knew? Maybe she knew people he knew. That's what people need to look into. The people he knew. The mutual people that they knew. Look into that.
Relationship, leading some to question whether he too had a hand in Teleka's disappearance, perhaps as a means of silencing her, or getting revenge for their relationship ending. But much like Sapp, Calderon was never actually labeled as a suspect. In fact, it appears that there was only ever one real person of interest in the minds of police, with that being James Davis, the last known contact that Teleka had through her cell phone, as he was the one that Teleka had called explaining that she was fearing for her life. Though given that he had lived so far away in St.
Okay,
Louis,
we're gonna have to rewind
he too
this.
would be
Let's rewind this back. Let's rewind this back. Listen.
breakup, thus causing Teleka's mental health to spiral, with the relationship potentially putting his career in jeopardy, as who knows what Teleka might say or do. And given his wealth, he certainly had the means to make this happen. However, this theory never really went further than mere speculation, and police would adamantly state that Sapp was merely a victim of stalking, and was never considered a person of interest in this case.
The pastor is nothing more than an innocent victim of an apparent stalking.
And on a similar note, there was another early suspect that would emerge in the public eye, Teleka's ex-husband, Ismael Calderon, to whom she had been married to for 4 years before splitting up in 2011. Immediately after the two had separated, Teleka had gone onto an online nursing forum and accused Ismael of emotionally and verbally abusing her throughout their relationship, leading some to question whether he too had a hand in Teleka's disappearance, perhaps as a means of silencing her, or getting revenge for their relationship ending. But much like Sapp, Calderon was never actually labeled as a suspect. In fact, it appears that there was only ever one real person of interest in the minds of police, with that being James Davis, the last known contact that Teleka had through her cell phone, as he was the one that Teleka had called explaining that she was fearing for her life. Though given that he had lived so far away in St. Louis, he too would be cleared of any wrongdoings, and instead was eventually labeled as just a concerned friend. And with no suspect, no body, and no real concrete clues, speculation is really all we'd be left with. At least until April 3rd, 2013, when everything would change.
First time, it's not what's under the tree that matters. It's who's around it.
To come in about a body found in a small Indiana lake.
This was not the answer anyone wanted. Investigators are certain the body found in an Indiana lake is that of Teleka Patrick.
Nearly 3 months after her disappearance, a fisherman would come across the body of Teleka Patrick floating in Lake Charles, in the general vicinity where her car was found abandoned, with an autopsy eventually confirming her cause of death, drowning, with no signs of trauma evident on the body. Putting the pieces together, investigators theorized that Teleka had suffered from a manic episode, causing her to believe that she was being followed and even hunted when she hurriedly drove off. And perhaps the shock of getting a flat tire led to her believing that someone was attempting to attack her, causing her to immediately grab the keys and flee from the car, fearing for her life. Without a flashlight and running in complete darkness, it's believed that Teleka accidentally ran straight into Lake Charles, which is a body of water located directly parallel to where her car was found, just a few hundred feet away. And tragically, that night the water was incredibly cold and could have caused almost immediate hypothermia, with the lake actually completely freezing over that very night, hiding her body in an icy tomb and forever sealing her fate. And as for the trail she left behind on the internet, well, despite being initially labeled as a profoundly disturbing internet mystery, with these videos being considered key pieces of evidence within her case, law enforcement now believe that this was all just merely a coincidence. As though her uploads and tweets do show evidence of her stalking, this stalking to them seems unrelated to her actual vanishing, and rather than being viewed as clues pointing towards foul play,
I don't believe in coincidences. Now, I understand there's some things that might happen that you can't explain, but I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe she killed herself, and until they can prove that she has a mental disorder, I don't believe she killed herself. What they need to do is they need to look into the people she knew, on a deeper level. They need to look into what she was going through for 3 months. What was she going through before she died? 3 months before she died, what was she going through? That's what they need to investigate. They need to investigate her bank records. They need to investigate, who was coming in and out of her apartment. Even if they can't, confirm that, they need to investigate what she was dealing with 3 months prior to her death. Simple as that. They need to investigate what happened to this woman 3 months prior to her death. Look into her personal life. That's it.
police now view these videos as apparent signs of Teleka's fractured mental health. This was the official explanation given for the disappearance of Teleka Patrick, a tragic accident triggered by untreated mental illness. Although, of course, some are still skeptical, including Teleka's own family, who point to several unexplained inconsistencies, like her scent trail leading directly to the road, which was the opposite direction of the lake, and the fact that the body of water where Teleka had been found was supposedly thoroughly searched on the night of her disappearance, and later even probed with sonar technology on 2 separate occasions, all of which yielding absolutely no results, despite the fact that that body of water is so small that most in the area actually consider it to be a pond, as it's so minuscule that it's not even labeled on Google Maps or Earth, which makes it all the more unusual that she wasn't discovered there sooner, prompting some to believe that she may have been kidnapped and killed elsewhere, before her body was later dumped in the water to give the illusion of an accidental death. Another unknown in this case is what actually triggered her manic episode, as many would assume that something must have happened that led to her believing she was in imminent danger, with some believing that it may have been a threat from her ex-husband or even Marvin Sapp. But according to all witnesses around her that day, nothing at all out of the ordinary was reported that may have sparked this fear, and nothing would be found on her cell phone as well, leaving the true cause of her episode to be unexplained to this day. The family was so distrusting of the initial investigation that a second autopsy would eventually be conducted, which would go on to show that Teleka had water within her nasal cavity, a detail that to the pathologists proved for certain that she had in fact died by drowning, which officially ended the police investigation for good, with one investigator stating that,
I do believe it's probably as solved as it's going to get.
Though to this day we're still left with many unanswered questions, and for some, the mystery lives on.
Well, I hope you have a good night. Bye. I love you.
I want to give a huge shout out to my gold tier patrons and my god tier patrons: Alexander Duran, America's Grumpy Uncle, Bazoo42, Biznacker, Bray, Karen S., Sierra Hammond, Charles Roble, Daniel Binge, Dark GJ.
Okay. So, like I said, if this young woman doesn't have a mental disorder, where she's taking medication, she's seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist. She doesn't have any diagnosis of any type of mental disorder. If there's no proof that this is the case, or she's taking medication, there's no documentation or any proof that she's doing this. She is not a mentally disabled woman. She's not a mentally disabled woman. From what I noticed, she seems like she's a very intelligent woman. Okay? So, with that being said, no grown-ass woman is going to make up or fantasize about whatever she got going on with a man. They need to delve deep into what happened to her 3 months prior to her death. That's it. What happened to this young woman, Miss Patrick, before she died? Before she was killed? Because I don't believe she killed herself. I think she was killed. What happened to her 3 months prior to her death? That's what they need to delve deep into. Delve deep into her personal relationships. They can say that the case is closed and whoop-de-whoop, but obviously there's still unanswered questions. Her co-worker, the shuttle bus driver. In the beginning, when they said that she didn't have a wallet, but then when she was when they found her car at the crime scene, they found her wallet. Just stuff like that. Maybe the man that made the crime documentary, maybe he messed up. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of discrepancies. Her wallet, the shuttle bus driver, her co-worker. They're saying she's delusional about this, Marvin Sapp. Okay. They said she was stalking him. Do they have concrete proof that she was stalking him? Stuff like that. Like, if there's no concrete proof she was stalking him, she wasn't stalking him. That's all I gotta say about that. What else? They said that she was very afraid. She was scared of her life. Well, why was she scared that night? Was she on some type of drugs? Was she having a manic episode? If she did, what triggered her manic episode? Number one, was she on drugs? If she wasn't on drugs, did she have a manic episode? If she had a manic episode, what triggered her manic episode? On that day, who was she in contact with that day? On that day, what happened with her wallet? How did she retrieve her wallet? All that type of stuff. Why didn't she want to go back to the hotel with the shuttle bus driver? How did she land up in that water, that big pile of water? All that type of stuff is what needs to be investigated. So, Kalamazoo, if you hear me, if you take this in, investigate. Figure out why this woman dealt with what she dealt with. What happened to her? I would love to know in my lifetime what happened to this woman. I'm so frustrated. It's so many cases that I'm frustrated about, but this is one of the ones that touched me, and I'm very frustrated. I'm going to talk about some more cases too, but this one touched me the most. One of the ones that touched me the most. There's some other ones that touched me too, but this one touched me a lot because she's a young black woman, and a lot of us, we're not. A lot of people don't defend young black women. A lot of people don't defend black women, period. Black men don't defend us. Society doesn't defend us. Black women, we don't defend each other. We're just hated upon a lot. And I need to know what happened to this woman. Sometimes I can't stand black women too. But at the same time, I love us. I want us all to be good and well and blessed. Until next time, peace and blessings. And this is Podcast Diaries. See you next time. Have a blessed night.